What we are seeing right now between Gavin Newsom and Arnold Schwarzenegger is not just friendly political fire. It is a signal that the Democrats' brand in California may be cracking. Newsom, who has long been positioned as one of the golden Democratic governors and also the next likely candidate for presidency, is now getting called out by his own side and publicly roasted by Bill Maher. That right there is not just embarrassing, but it's also dangerous for his standing and dangerous for the Democratic Party. This is going to be a good one, so make sure you like, comment, watch to the end, and subscribe for daily news updates. It means the world to me, and don't forget to share. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the former governor of California, has stepped into the ring. His recent criticism of Newsom shocked everyone. Schwarzenegger called out Newsom's push for Proposition 50, which is a redistricting initiative championed by Newsom. It's basically just a big scam, arguing that Newsom is turning the independent redistricting system on its head and giving more power back to politicians instead of voters. This is a public figure from his own state and his own legacy who is gaslighting Newsom's strategy. For Newsom, who has worked hard at crafting this image of progressive strength, that's a reputational hit. Then we have Bill Maher, someone who very often calls out radicals on the left. He took Newsom to town on his show. Just recently, Maher zeroed in on Newsom's tactics by mocking his trolling styles, his performative stunts, and his aggressive redistricting push. Let's take a look at this clip of both Maher and Arnold dropping bombs on the Democrats and explaining why California is headed in the wrong direction.
But just basically what's going on in this country is, to give the broader picture, Trump does everything 10 times more than other people have done. Everybody always gerrymandered. He's taken it to a completely new level. He's getting legislatures now to redraw districts. This is where the politicians pick the voters when really the people should be picking the politicians. You reformed this in California and said, we don't want that, which is the right thing to do in sort of just the, macro. But things have changed, would you not say? If the Republicans are doing it, how can the Democrats unilaterally disarm? He wants Indiana now to be a state that's going to have 0 Democrat representatives. If Texas is doing it, now California's Prop 50, Gavin Newsom wants us to undo what you did, made it fair, and go back to this because we can't unilaterally disarm. What is your argument now, given the new information?
Well, I think that Prop 50 is a big scam. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it says that we should fight Trump and because he's a threat to democracy. But in the meantime, they want to go and tear up the Constitution in California, get rid of the independent commission that draws the district lines and take the power away from the people and give it back to the politicians. So how does this go? Fighting democracy or helping democracy or fighting Trump and imitating what Texas is doing? I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Looking at that clip, we can understand a lot of the valid points both of the men are saying. Maher made a good point. He says that they're having legislators redraw the districting. And if they do that, that's taking all the power away from the voters. It's letting the politicians pick the voters instead of the way it should be, which is the voters picking the politicians. And we all know that Newsom wants to run for president, so it makes sense why he would do these types of things to make sure everything is in line and favors him for his presidency run. Another point that stuck out to me was when Arnold Schwarzenegger said that everyone's trying to act like Trump is who we need to fight because Trump is the threat to democracy. But meanwhile, you have California disregarding their constitution, basically ripping it up. So who's actually the threat to democracy? I want to take a look at this clip from Fox of the reporter David Webb blatantly calling Newsom a scam artist. Watch this.
28. David, I want to bring you in because I saw you kind of reacting during the intro there.
It's the Gavin Newsom effect.
Yeah. Tell us what your thoughts are. Reparations in California.
Okay, first of all, Gavin Newsom's a scam artist. Look at what he signed and what he didn't sign. So he vetoes the bill that would allow colleges to give priority admissions to descendants of slaves, but he signs a $6 million authorization to Cal State to research methods of determining slavery ancestry. It's what he does that you should pay attention to. He virtue signals without doing anything. $6 million is going to go to another, shrimp on treadmill type study, and it goes nowhere. When you look at how blacks have voted in California on issues, not on party, they're not for a lot of the issues that Democrats push out there. Reparations, they're gone. Okay, it's generations, it's over. And the ones still trying to push it are those who are just trying to keep blacks in Oakland and other dense populations where they need them, where, by the way, they've failed. You know what the real reparation in this country is? What? The real reparation in this country is to give someone the best shot at a good education, the best shot at a good economic environment and a job. The best anti-poverty program is a job. Better than that, a career. You do those things, black, white, Appalachia, East LA, wherever you are in this country, and you will suddenly see a whole difference, or at least a remarkable difference in a population.
And Joey, maybe that's...
So from listening to that clip of David Webb speak, you can understand what's happening if you have a bit of common sense. Newsom signed a bill that stopped colleges from authorizations where they can accept students that have slave ancestry. But on the other hand, he signed a bill worth $6 million to send to a California university to do research on slave ancestry. How does that make sense? You stop them from getting the education and things that they do need, but now you're trying to figure out their lineage. The main problem I have with that is the whole thing surrounding slavery is that you can't even track the full lineage. Throughout slavery, all that time, families were ripped apart, were separated, were given different names, first names being changed, last names, culture being divided, losing a sense of self. How would you ever be able to fully track the lineage of slaves? So to give money to find lineage that you will probably never really able to fully understand and find, you might get a couple generations if you're lucky. So the least you could do is give education. Give a fair chance of education and jobs and economics. Give them a fair chance to make it in the world. That's a better reparation than you sending money to a college that is looking for something they're never going to find. And honestly, I'm not surprised by Gavin Newsom's actions. I've seen a lot of things surrounding his name, news clip, tweets, just pure evidence of him being a scam artist. So it also makes me wonder, what else is he going to do, scam his way into to become president? Lastly, I want to take a look at this older clip of Charlie Kirk completely going off on Newsom just a few weeks before he was assassinated. He made some extremely great points and also exposed Newsom's fraudulent act that's been going on for a while. Watch this.
Politics. It's really something to see what's happened to the Democrat Party. Now, we've had that conversation, but there's something uniquely, such a repellent about Gavin Newsom and now what he's trying to do in California.
That's right. And just to reiterate your phenomenal open, Proposition 11 was voted on by the fake gerrymandering out of the hands of politicians and into this independent commission. Now, it's far from perfect. Some of the maps in California are a little bit creative, to say the least, a little circuitous. But however, it did have some sort of a spirit that the people of California did not want politics involved in the drawing of their maps. In fact, a recent poll shows that 64% of Californians do not want to see Gavin Newsom do this. But Gavin Newsom needs to dig himself out of a hole. This is what it's all about. This is about Gavin Newsom's failed podcast strategy. Gavin Newsom had a podcast strategy, which I was the first guest on, where he was going to try to moderate himself and try to do the bro-y podcast culture, of which he was really bad at. He didn't know his facts, his figures. He didn't really know how to deal with facts like myself and other people. And he thought he was going to be welcomed in as the 2028 Democrat candidate. But the Democrat Party, they do not want someone to start a podcast. They want a quote-unquote fighter against Donald Trump. All Gavin Newsom cares about is being president of the United States. That's all he cares about. That's all that this is. This is a 2028 strategy. And so Gavin Newsom is going to try to call a special session to overturn the will of the voters. I thought it was all about democracy, right? It's not democracy. It's about oligarchy. And the baseline component of all of this is that the people of California, Republican and Democrat, socialist and libertarian, they don't want politicians involved in the drawing of the maps Gavin Newsom does not care because he wants to be president more than listen to the voters of California.
Charlie, you remind me of something there. I had forgotten that you were the first guest into Gavin Newsom's attempt to podcast. You know, I talked about his fraudulence is so transparent. What was he like in person, Charlie? When you sat there, is he capable of being authentically charming? Does he have the mannerisms of it mastered, or is it exposed over a period of time? What was it like being around Gavin Newsom?
I mean, he can pass a lie detector test. I mean, this guy can win anybody over. But if you understand, it's all about the pursuit of power. This is a guy that will say anything and do anything to be in charge. In
that clip of Charlie, his points, they can stand as valid. Kirk said that Gavin Newsom's only main goal is to become president. He doesn't care about what the people want. The people don't want any politicians and people of power involved with the redrawing of the districts. They don't want that. Let that stay separate. But all Newsom wants to do is put things in favor for him so that he can become president. And it seems like we're watching him do it live in front of our eyes. Another thing that pointed out to me, he has a podcast. I don't want to see the next presidential candidate sitting in his basement doing a podcast, inviting on people to talk. I need you to be doing things that actually show you could run a country and do it well. If I have a president, I want him to be able to do well and good enough for the people to actually make a change that is respectable and that makes sense. Another point that Charlie mentioned was that even Newsom's energy was just very fake, off, disingenuous, and not authentic. One thing you can say about the presidents, they have to have some type of charm or charisma, but it needs to feel real to the people because you can spot a fake very easily. And that's what's happening with Newsom. People are starting to see him for his true colors. All he cares about is to make presidency. That's all he is. He has no other goal in mind besides that. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on KW Lawaholic.